All right, learner, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling The Montessori Child, a parent's guide to raising capable children by Simone Davies and Junnifa Uzodike.
You know, it's like a crash course on building a supportive environment for your kids all the way from those first years through the teen years.
Yeah, we're on a mission to really pull out those practical Montessori principles that can help foster independence, curiosity, and a love of learning.
And we're talking actionable ideas here.
Absolutely, not just theory.
So to introduce our sources for today, we've got Simone Davies, a certified Montessori teacher.
Yeah, and she's qualified to work with infants all the way through elementary school.
She's also got training in positive discipline.
And to round out our expertise, we've got Junnifa Uzodike.
A Montessori educator and a parent herself.
So she's living this stuff day in and day out.
And her training is international, which means she brings a great perspective on how to adapt these principles to various cultural contexts.
A real-world guide. That's what we're after. Now, one of the core ideas in the book is this emphasis on respecting the child's natural development.
Yeah, it's not about forcing them into a mold. It's about recognizing and supporting their innate drive to learn and become capable.
It really challenges some of those traditional views of kids as being stubborn or unwilling to share.
Right. It almost flips the script.
Like the book suggests, children are actually naturally caring and incredibly eager to learn.
Yeah, and that they will thrive if their basic needs are met in the right kind of environment, which is something we'll unpack.
Exactly.
So learner, think of this deep dive as a shortcut.
Yeah, we want to give you those core Montessori principles that you can apply at home.
And we'll break down how your role as a parent shifts from being in control to more of a guide.
More of a mentor.
Exactly.
We'll talk about setting up that prepared environment. That's a big one.
Oh yeah, so important.
And of course, we'll touch on the essentials of helping your little ones develop those social and emotional skills.
And how to work through those moments when, cooperation feels impossible.
The power struggles, we've all been there.
Absolutely. Now, the book opens with a really powerful quote from Khalil Gibran's On Children. It says, "Your children are not your children. They come through you, but not from you. They belong not to you."
It's a great way to set the tone, really emphasizing respect for the child's individuality.
It is. And it reminds us that we're here to support their unique journey, not to impose our own expectations.
Speaking of journeys, it's fascinating to think about how Dr. Montessori's observations challenge those common beliefs about children.
Oh yeah, back in 1907, she set up her first Casa dei Bambini, which translates to children's house.
Not in some fancy school, right? It was in a low-income housing project in Italy.
Right. She referred to it as her laboratory. And contrary to those prevailing views of children as needing strict discipline to learn, she observed something completely different.
She saw that in a supportive environment, these kids were not only capable, but they were also incredibly caring. And most importantly, they were eager to learn.
And what's striking, learner, is that Davies and Uzodike argue that even today, over a century later, those underlying characteristics of children haven't changed.
So these principles are just as relevant now as they were back in Dr. Montessori's time.
Absolutely. Human tendencies and needs, they're timeless.
All right, let's unpack those human tendencies a bit. What are we talking about here?
Okay, so think of these as the innate drives that all children have. They're not things we teach. They're already there, like a blueprint for development.
Got it. So like that natural urge to explore.
Exactly. That's one. Then there's a need for orientation, for figuring out their place in the world, and the desire for order, for structure and predictability. And we can't forget communication.
They're little social beings from day one.
Right, and they're constantly moving, always active. And then there's work, engaging in purposeful activities, and the power of repetition, practicing to get better at things. And finally, that inner drive for self-perfection.
It's like they're wired to learn and grow.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes that these tendencies are especially strong in those first 6 years, but they continue throughout development.
So it's crucial for parents to understand and tap into these tendencies rather than trying to suppress them.
Absolutely. And that's where Montessori really shines.
Okay, to understand how these tendencies play out over time, let's dive into those 4 planes of development.
Sounds good. Plane 1, the first plane, is from birth to 6 years old. It's when the child is that sensorial explorer, constantly taking in information through their senses.
That's where the idea of the absorbent mind comes in, right?
Exactly. Their brains are like sponges soaking up every sight, sound, and sensation.
Unconsciously, too, which is kind of mind-blowing.
It is.
So within this first plane, we have the 0 to 3-year-olds.
Right. They're experiencing immense physical growth,
Oh.
learning those fundamental skills, walking, talking.
And then from 3 to 6, they're refining those skills, and their curiosity just explodes. That's when the why questions start coming nonstop.
Yeah, they want to know everything. It's a really exciting time.
Then we move on to plane 2, from 6 to 12 years old.
Now the focus shifts a little bit. They're still curious, but the questions become more about why and how things work.
That's when they really start to develop a sense of morality and justice, right and wrong.
Exactly. They have more knowledge of the world and begin to see how everything is interconnected.
And they start to form their own opinions, which, as the book mentions, can lead to some interesting power struggles.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Montessori called this stage the age of rudeness because they often test boundaries and challenge rules as they try to make sense of things.
So parents need a whole new set of tools.
Definitely. And then we've got the teenage years, plane 3, from 12 to 18. Huge physical and emotional changes. Kind of echoes that first plane in a way.
Like a second birth, almost.
Yeah, there's that. But the key here is their desire to do things themselves, collaboratively, that help us do it ourselves kind of mindset.
That makes sense.
They're figuring out who they are as individuals, but they also really want to belong to a group.
Peer pressure is a big factor.
Huge. So for this age, Dr. Montessori envisioned these programs called Erdkinder, focused on meaningful work and community engagement.
So real-world, hands-on learning.
Exactly.
It's about giving them responsibility and helping them see how they can contribute to the world.
And the adolescent is often described as a social newborn, navigating this new terrain of relationships and expectations.
And then we reach plane 4, from 18 to 24, which is all about maturity.
It's generally a more stable period, a time for consolidating those moral and spiritual values they've been exploring and finding ways to give back to society.
Okay, so along with these planes, the book also highlights the concept of sensitive periods. What are those exactly?
Well, these are like windows of opportunity, temporary phases, when a child is particularly primed to learn certain skills or concepts.
So it's about being attuned to those and providing the right experiences at the right time.
Exactly. For example, between 3 and 6, there's often a sensitive period for language development. So reading aloud, having conversations, and exposing them to a rich vocabulary can really accelerate their learning.
So it's not just about age, it's about recognizing those bursts of readiness in specific areas.
Precisely.
All right, let's talk about the role of the parent. How does that shift in a Montessori approach?
It's less about being the boss and more about becoming a guide.
More of a mentor, right?
Exactly. It's a more hands-off, supportive approach that really empowers the child to learn and grow independently.
So what does being a guide actually look like?
Well, first off, it's about creating that safe and nurturing environment we talked about.
Both physically and emotionally.
Exactly. And it's about setting clear expectations and boundaries, but doing it in a way that involves the child.
So creating agreements together rather than just dictating rules.
Yes. And observation is huge. Being a guide means paying close attention to your child, understanding their needs, their interests, their strengths and weaknesses.
So you can tailor your support.
Right. And it's about fostering independence, encouraging them to do things for themselves.
Giving them that sense of ownership.
Exactly. And of course, it's about sparking their natural curiosity, feeding that love of learning, building trust and connection.
Being a positive role model.
Yes. Showing them the values and behaviors you want them to emulate.
And respecting their individuality.
Mm-hmm.
Not trying to force them into a certain mold.
Right. Letting them unfold at their own pace.
That takes patience.
It does. It's a journey for us as parents, too.
Okay, let's talk about those agreements in more detail. How does that work?
So instead of laying down the law, it's about involving your child in creating family rules and guidelines.
So it's more of a collaboration.
Exactly. And the book stresses the importance of being specific. So instead of just saying, be respectful, you discuss what that actually means in practical terms.
Like giving examples of respectful behavior.
Right, like listening when someone is talking, using kind words.
So it's not just about rules, but about building understanding and shared responsibility.
Exactly. It's a really powerful shift.
And how about connecting with your child on a deeper level? What are some ways to nurture that bond?
Well, spending quality time together is crucial. Reading together, having those family meals without screens, showing genuine interest in their passions.
And really listening to them.
Yes, active listening is so important. And creating a space where they feel safe sharing their thoughts and feelings without judgment.
Even simple things like making a list of fun activities to do together and actually doing them.
Right. Making those memories.
Having those little rituals. Being present. Putting those phones away.
And being consistent in your responses, especially during conflicts. Kids need that predictability to feel secure. And let's not forget humor. Laughter can be a really powerful connector.
Building trust seems crucial.
It is. And that means being honest with your kids, even about tough topics, in a way they can understand.
Yeah, age-appropriate honesty.
Right. And it means letting go of the need to control everything.
Shifting from that micromanaging parent to more of a trusting, hands-off supervisor.
Exactly. Letting go of those societal expectations of what they should be doing and trusting their natural developmental timeline.
It's about respecting their process.
And believing in their capabilities.
Now, the book really emphasizes observation as a key to understanding your child. What exactly are we looking for?
Well, it's about really paying attention to how they are developing, their needs, their interests, their strengths, and the areas where they might need a little extra support.
Trying to see them objectively.
Yes, and unconditionally loving them, not for what they do, but for who they are.
Celebrating their uniqueness.
Exactly. And the Montessori approach really boils down to being in service to our child's spirit, as the book puts it, giving them the space to become themselves.
That's beautiful.
It is.
And it leads us to another core Montessori principle, follow the child.
Right. This isn't about letting them run wild. It's about stepping back and trusting their innate ability to learn.
Only intervening when absolutely necessary.
Right. It takes practice to trust in that process, to observe patiently, to wait, and to let them learn from their mistakes.
Not always jumping in to fix things for them.
Exactly. And when they do need help, offering just a little bit at first, guiding them, not doing it for them.
And encouraging that natural curiosity.
Absolutely. Asking open-ended questions, exploring their interests with them.
And exposing them to new ideas through conversation materials or even your own actions.
But never forcing them.
So how do we create that prepared environment at home?
It's about creating a space that's both functional and aesthetically pleasing.
A place where children feel safe and empowered to explore.
Exactly. Making sure everything is accessible to them.
Toys, books, art supplies.
Yes. Organized in a way that they can easily reach and put things away themselves.
And child-sized furniture is important, right?
So important. They need to feel comfortable in their own space.
And having designated areas for different activities.
Absolutely. Even a small workspace can really help them focus.
Okay, the book dives into specific suggestions for different areas of the home. What about the general living spaces?
So think orderly shelves that display items nicely. Books should be easily accessible, and showcasing a child's art is always a good idea.
It's about making it their space, too.
Right. And incorporating elements of nature, maybe a flower arrangement, or even some plants that they can help care for.
Bringing the outdoors in.
And leaving some flexible floor space for them to move around and play.
And some comfy spots for reading or a quiet time.
Exactly. Pillows, blankets, things like that.
Okay, what about the entryway?
Well, the entryway can be really helpful in setting up those routines. Having a designated space for shoes, bags, keys, maybe a visual chart to guide them through those morning and evening routines.
And the wardrobe.
Making sure the wardrobe is accessible to them with clear labels can help them learn to manage their own clothes.
And a dedicated workspace.
Even if it's just a corner of a table, a dedicated workspace can signal that this is a place for focus and concentration.
What about the kitchen and dining area?
Oh, the kitchen. It's a goldmine for learning.
A mini science lab.
Exactly. Setting up a workspace where they can help prepare food, providing child-sized tools, maybe even a low area for snacks.
Giving them access to plates and utensils they can reach.
And encouraging them to participate in cleaning up, washing dishes, putting things away. An adjustable chair can also make meal times more comfortable.
And having water readily accessible.
So important.
What about outdoor space?
Outdoor space is crucial for their development, even if it's just a small balcony with a few potted plants. It's about connecting with nature.
Yeah, encouraging them to explore and observe the natural world.
And giving them the tools to do so. Art supplies, maybe a notebook and pencil for sketching, some child-sized gardening tools.
And making sure the outdoor area is safe so they can have that independence.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about those Montessori activities at home. The book makes it clear this isn't about recreating a classroom.
Right. It's not about turning your home into a school. It's about embracing those natural learning moments that arise in everyday life.
Those teachable moments.
Yes. And the most important thing here is giving your child time. Time to explore, experiment, and figure things out on their own.
Letting them struggle a little bit.
Exactly. The book actually quotes Dr. Montessori as saying, "Never help a child with a task at which he feels he can succeed."
It's like a good reminder.
It's about trusting in their abilities.
So how do we find those activities?
Well, look around. There are learning opportunities everywhere.
And getting creative with materials is key, right?
Absolutely. Think secondhand stores, thrift shops, using packaging and materials you already have. Nature is a great source of inspiration too.
Pine cones, leaves, sticks.
Exactly. Use your imagination.
So when choosing those activities, what should we keep in mind?
Well, it helps to go back to those human tendencies we talked about earlier.
Those innate drives.
Right. Consider the developmental stage your child is in and any sensitive periods you might be observing.
So for instance, if you have a 3 to 6-year-old who, as we discussed, is driven by exploration, order, movement, and has a heightened sensitivity to language and sensory experiences.
You can tailor your activities to match those interests and needs.
And how about making those activities appealing? How should we present them?
Open shelves are better than those big toy boxes because it allows children to see what's available.
Makes it easy for them to choose.
Right. Arranging activities from easiest to most challenging can also help them select appropriately.
And grouping similar items together creates a sense of order.
And the less is more principle is really key here.
Having fewer toys out at a time, rotating them regularly.
It prevents overwhelm and keeps things fresh.
In natural containers.
Yes. Baskets, trays, wooden boxes.
Makes it more aesthetically pleasing.
Exactly.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. How do children learn to navigate those social interactions?
Well, they primarily learn through observation and experience, so it's crucial to create a positive and caring environment where they can see those healthy interactions modeled.
Being the example.
And we can actively teach them grace and courtesy. These are the skills that help them interact respectfully with others.
Like saying please and thank you, holding doors open.
Exactly. It's about showing consideration and empathy.
And what about moral development? How do children develop a sense of right and wrong?
Well, in the early years, they really absorb everything from their environment. So if we want them to be kind and honest, we need to model those values consistently.
Practice what you preach.
Exactly. And then between 6 and 12, as they develop those logical thinking skills, they start to question everything.
That age of rudeness.
Yeah, it's not actually rudeness. It's a necessary step in forming their own moral compass. They need to understand the reasons behind rules, not just blindly obey them.
So how do we handle that?
It's about responding respectfully to those questions and challenges, engaging in open dialogue.
So bringing it back to grace and courtesy lessons, how do we actually teach those at home?
Well, it's about helping children understand that their actions impact others.
So making that connection between their behavior and its consequences.
Exactly, and teaching them how to recognize and express their own feelings in healthy ways.
So they don't resort to lashing out or shutting down.
Right, and then teaching them how to respond appropriately in different social situations, both the good and the bad.
So not just assuming they'll instinctively know how to react.
Exactly. It takes practice. Role-playing different scenarios can be helpful. And as adults, we set those clear boundaries for acceptable behavior.
And consistency is key.
Absolutely.
Honesty is a big one, too.
Definitely. It's about being truthful with our kids, even when it's hard, and keeping our promises.
Building that foundation of trust.
Right. And being mindful of the language we use, especially with younger children. They take things literally.
Okay, what about sibling relationships? Those can be tricky.
They can be. The book highlights the importance of spending one-on-one time with each child.
So they each feel seen and heard.
Right. And it's about equity, not equality. Recognizing that each child has unique needs and meeting those needs.
Not always trying to treat them exactly the same.
Exactly. And it's important to encourage them to express their feelings to each other in a healthy way. Give them the language to do that.
So they can work through those conflicts.
And when conflicts do arise, try to observe and understand the root cause.
Maybe it's related to their different developmental stages.
Could be. And then creating spaces in the home where they can have both shared time and private time.
So they have that balance.
And teaching them those polite ways to interrupt.
Like gently tapping someone on the shoulder.
Exactly.
Okay, what about navigating friendships outside the family?
Well, it's about staying attuned to your child's behavior.
Noticing any changes that might be linked to a particular friendship.
Right, and having open conversations with them about how they feel when they are with that friend.
Helping them understand what a healthy friendship looks and feels like.
Exactly. And sometimes you might need to help them build up their self-confidence.
Give them strategies for dealing with peer pressure.
And if a friendship seems consistently negative, you might consider limiting time spent with that friend.
But doing so in a way that doesn't feel punitive.
Right. It's about guidance, not punishment.
The book also talks about anti-bias education. How do we incorporate that into our parenting?
So the book outlines 4 main goals. First, helping our children understand and value their own unique identities.
Race, ethnicity, gender, religion, abilities.
All of it.
And we need to be mindful that younger children absorb attitudes about these things from their surroundings.
Right. Well, older children will start to question those similarities and differences.
It's goal number 2.
Is ensuring that our children are comfortable with human diversity.
Exposing them to different cultures, backgrounds, and ways of life.
Yes. Making sure they have friends and connections with people from a wide range of backgrounds.
And goal number 3.
Helping them recognize injustice and understand that it causes harm.
Teaching them to identify unfairness and stereotypes, both directed at themselves and others.
And encouraging them to think critically about systemic issues, asking those questions like, who's missing from this picture?
And finally, goal number 4.
Equipping them with the skills to stand up for themselves and others when they see bias happening.
Giving them the language to speak up.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about routines. The book actually prefers the word rhythm.
Right. Rhythm suggests a bit more flexibility than a rigid routine, while still providing that predictability that children thrive on.
So it's not about being super strict, but about having a general flow to the day.
Exactly. Maybe a quick check-in each morning to discuss the plan for the day. And being willing to adjust those rhythms based on your child's needs.
Being responsive.
And the book offers some tips for making transitions smoother, like being clear about expectations, encouraging cooperation in a positive way, and slowing down the pace.
Giving them time to process.
Visual schedules can be really helpful for younger children.
And for older kids, involving them in finding solutions for sticking to those rhythms can give them ownership.
And preparing the environment to support those rhythms.
Like having everything ready to go in the morning so there's no last-minute scramble.
Exactly. And using playful reminders, giving them time to transition, and maybe even waking up a bit earlier yourself to create a calmer start to the day.
Those little things can make a big difference.
They really can.
Okay, what about birthdays? How does a Montessori approach handle those celebrations?
It's about keeping it simple and meaningful. Maybe creating some family rituals.
Like making a birthday crown.
Yes, or having a special candle they light each year. Baking their favorite cake.
Keeping the focus on quality time with loved ones.
Exactly. And when it comes to gifts, the book encourages a shift towards more thoughtful choices.
So experiences rather than just more toys.
Right. Maybe museum passes, a trip to the zoo, things like that. And if they're receiving gifts from others, you can always offer some guidance in advance, maybe a wish list or some ideas for things they're saving for.
That's a good tip.
And the book also addresses what to do with those well-intentioned but maybe not so appropriate gifts.
Like those noisy toys that drive parents crazy.
You can always save them for later, re-gift them, or donate them.
What about meal times? How do we foster a healthy relationship with food in a Montessori setting?
It's about instilling respect for food, understanding where it comes from, avoiding waste, not playing with food at the table, and expressing gratitude.
And involving children in the preparation process can be really helpful, right?
Definitely. It gives them a sense of ownership and helps them appreciate the effort that goes into making a meal. The book suggests being clear about when, what, and where meals will happen.
But still respecting their choices about how much they eat.
Right. It's about finding that balance.
Okay, let's talk about sleep.
Consistent bedtime routines are crucial. Maybe a bath, reading a book together, some quiet time, and having those agreed upon bedtimes.
Especially for those 6 to 12-year-olds who might want to stay up late.
Right. And if you're encountering sleep issues, working together with your child to troubleshoot those can be helpful.
So considering things like their diet, how much outdoor time they're getting, relaxation techniques,
Yeah.
maybe even those bedtime conversations.
Exactly. It's all connected.
And what about travel? How can we make travel a learning experience?
The book suggests involving kids in the planning process, maybe choosing destinations, helping pack their bags.
Giving them some control over the experience.
Right. And encourage them to keep a travel journal, write down their observations, draw pictures, collect mementos.
And being mindful of cultural sensitivity, right?
Absolutely. Supporting local guides and artisans, learning a few basic phrases in the local language.
Making it a truly enriching experience.
And planning for some downtime is important too.
Yeah, travel can be exhausting, especially for little ones.
And pack some engaging activities that don't involve screens.
Books, puzzles, art supplies.
Exactly.
Okay, how about language development?
The key is creating a language-rich environment. Talking to your child, reading to them, singing songs, sharing stories.
And using rich and varied language, not dumbing it down.
Right. And really listening to them when they talk.
Active listening.
And providing opportunities for them to express themselves creatively.
Through art, music, drama.
Exactly.
And for bilingual families.
The book mentions that for a child to become truly literate in the minority language, they need to be exposed to it for about 30% of their waking hours.
So consistent exposure is key.
It is.
The book also addresses supporting neurodiversity and disabilities.
Yes. It emphasizes that Dr. Montessori believed in the potential of every child,
regardless of their challenges.
Exactly. So the focus should always be on their capabilities, adapting the environment and activities as needed.
And the book reminds parents to take care of themselves as well. It's hard work.
It is. It's crucial to seek support from your community, your partner, whoever you can.
Okay, how about cultivating cooperation?
Well, it's about being a guide, not a dictator.
So, not barking orders.
Right. It's about asking those key questions.
Yeah.
Does my child understand what I'm asking? Is the environment set up for success?
Is this developmentally appropriate?
Right. And have I involved my child in finding solutions?
Giving them a voice.
And am I truly supporting their growth with my actions?
Not just reacting to their behavior.
Exactly. And when it comes to communication, using phrases like yes, when, instead of a flat-out no.
Giving them a path to getting what they want.
Exactly. And saying, let me think about it when you need time to process.
So you don't just blurt out a response you might regret later.
And actions speak louder than words.
Showing, not just telling.
And sometimes a simple one-word reminder can be more effective than a long explanation.
Less is more.
And don't forget to talk about your own feelings. Model that healthy communication.
That's a good point. Okay, what do we do when our child is having a meltdown?
The first step is to help them regulate those emotions.
So calm them down before trying to address the situation.
Exactly. The book suggests creating a calming space.
A safe space where they can go to decompress.
Right. And things like co-regulation, deep breathing, rocking, sensory grounding techniques can all be helpful.
And remember, all behavior is communication. So try to understand what that behavior is telling you about their unmet needs.
Hey everyone, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support means the world to me and helps the channel grow. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.